Hi everyone, this is Lauren coming at you from the Break Zone with another deck tech video. This one going over the mono water list that was piloted by Sasha Korbel to win the German Nationals just a few weeks ago. The name of the deck is Pat Will Love This, and hopefully Pat did. So if you take a look at the deck list to my right, you'll notice some familiar faces from Cognasso to Knights and Lena, as well as the Vikings, Layla, Cloud of Darkness packages. All of the little things where they kind of go hand in hand. Trying to build out a board, put a lot of water characters and forwards in order to lead up to that eventual Cognasso Scholar, return Cognasso to your hand, and play Cognasso again, one-sided board wipe so that you can reduce the power of opposing forwards by so much that they get put into the break zone, and that will actually get around things like Opus 6 Shola that cannot be broken by opposing summons and abilities, because reducing the power of an opposing forward by a 0 to a 0 or negative value will put into the break zone and not count as breaking. So Cognasso, with all the Cognasso math, as you can see, if you're able to do it correctly, you'll be able to do a one-sided board wipe. You can go ahead and use this in combination with other power reducing effects that you have available to you in this deck, such as Cloud of Darkness, Bismarck, Kuchulain, in order to put whatever forwards, however large they are, to a value that is 0 or negative and put them into the break zone. Next up, we've got Knights that get to be about 9,000 power if you have 5 water backups, including Waka. And if you add Refia on top of that, Knights will become a 2-drop 10k, which is way above curve, as normally you get about 6,000 to 7,000, 5 to 6,000 power out of 2 CP forwards. Next up, we've got Lena, who works really well with Knights and Favorite Migogo. And once in a while, that Arise will be able to get you a Cloud of Darkness or something like that from your break zone into the field. Next up is Favorite Migogo. Be very wary about the little condition that it has on it as part of the text. A 1-drop 7k is, as I mentioned earlier, way above curve, because if a 2 CP forward gets you about 5 to 6,000 power, a 1 CP should not be getting you 7,000. But in this case, it's really good against overly aggressive decks that revolve around having forwards on the field, such as, let's say, Turbo Discard. Being able to play a Favorite Gogo that is a 7,000 power forward for 1 CP is going to put a little bit of, I guess you could say, a speed bump or a little wall to protect you from opposing forwards coming in for damage early on. Next up, we've got Vikings that work really well with the Lenas. Layla and Lena, I'm just interchanging them by mistake. All really water-based forwards that give you a lot of CP value from being played. So, as I mentioned, Layla with Vikings, if you're not familiar with them, you'll be able to get 2 forwards for 4 CP and also draw a card. It's a lot of value and it's going to push your board state forward. Cloud of Darkness works really well with Vikings and Layla, and to some extent, the Knights and Lena, being able to reduce the power of opening forwards by a significant amount, probably enough to put them into the break zone, is going to be good. After that, being able to attack and reduce the power of opposing forwards by enough can definitely get you into a state where you are dealing with larger forwards effectively. Keep in mind that Cloud of Darkness is not the largest forward around, but in combination with her ability, in combination with Waka and Refia, Cloud of Darkness can really duke it out with some of the big boys out in the meta. So Refia, interesting card, being able to, let's say, well, first of all, it's gonna buff all your forwards, but also that ability, if you stuck a Refia before the Cognasso bounce, the Cognasso double play in 1 turn, you'll be able to turn, let's say, your remaining water backups, probably about 4 the following turn, and one of the smaller water forwards that you have, into somewhat of a Leviathan effect. and that usually allows you to swing in for enough. So normally what happens is that during that key Cognasso turn in the mid to late game, you should be able to get about 3 to 4 points of damage. If you're about to get 4, that should really put your opponent into lethal range. And if all they're able to play the following turn is 1 forward, you can go ahead, return it to their hand, and swing in for the win. Alright, last but not least for forwards, we've got Ash, who is really a big wall against a lot of the meta. If we talk about Turbo Discard, if they want to Dole and freeze her, is going to be quite problematic, as she is. You'll be able to reactivate her by using 2 water CP, whether it's by discarding a water card, which is 100% of your deck, so any card in your hand is a way to reactivate her, or 2 water CP from backups, for example, is gonna make those Genesis effects, or let's say they have, well, they don't really see snow anymore, but anything like that, Ash is gonna be able to get in the way, and any kind of let's say Alcid combo or Dialuma pings can make Ash quite tough to deal with at times. And you also have Razzler in this deck, which is gonna protect Ash from being broken by opposing summons and abilities. So whether you want to deal damage to her that outside of combat from abilities or summons, or if you want to try to break her with a summon or ability, she is going to be quite problematic. Alright, so let's go over some of the summons. Starting off with Bismarck. So if you have Bismarck and you have Yuna, for 1 water CP, you can go ahead and reduce opposing forward's power by half, rounded down to the nearest 1,000. So that can be quite a bit. In case of emergency break glass, you've also got a way to return your Cognasso back to your hand, or even return monsters to their hands. Next up, we've got Famfrit. If the meta is still quite aggressive as it has been lately, be able to get Famfrit out early on when you're just building out your backups and you don't have any forwards out quite yet. As I mentioned, allow yourself to take a couple points of damage normally early on against aggressive decks. Build out your backups, get efficient, then you have all those cards that give you so much value, from the Knight to Lena package to the Vikings Layla. You'll be able to build out your force quite a bit, but early on, if they're being too aggressive, being able to do a to have an X burst of being able to force your opponent to put a forward to the break zone. That's also going to get around anything that says that your forward cannot be broken by summons or abilities. Is going to be good for you. It's going to give you a lot of value. And if you have Yuna out, obviously it's a 2-drop Famfrit. If an opponent went a little too ham and was overly aggressive, played a big forward by itself early on, let's say a Camelot or something like that, then if you have Yuna out for 2 CP, you'll be able to force that card off the field. Last but not least, for summons, you've got Kuhulain, who works really well in combination with the theme of the deck, which is to reduce the power of opposing forwards. So even if they have a forward that's just a little bit too big, go ahead and use a combination of your cards, power reduction effects from Cognasso to Cloud of Darkness to Bismarck, and you'll be able to even get a card out of it. So with Yuna, this is a 3 CP card, 3 cost, and you'll be able to draw a card out of it. That's going to be pretty good. Okay, next let's go over some of the backups. Scholar working so well with Cognasso, or if you really want to protect some of your other forwards, there's definitely combinations that you can use, whether it is like Cloud of Darkness, stuff like that, for targeted forward removal, things like that. You'll have that ability, but for the most part, it's going to be for Cognasso. Yuna, you're playing Mono Water, and you have a bunch of really good cheap summons. Yuna definitely makes Kuhulain so much more playable, and Famfrit being a 2 cost is going to allow you to even pitch a water card from your hand to play it out early on. And oh yeah, 1 CP Bismarck is just disgusting almost. It's just so powerful that, I mean, that's just almost not fair. Alright, Mono Water with forwards, Waka is a good call. Gladiator to bring back those Knights and those Vikings. Braun to be able to get you those Vikings, because if you have a Layla in hand to play and you have no Vikings in the break zone, you're going to have some problems. Keep in mind that you can use the Viking and discard it for CP to play Layla, and then afterwards you'll be able to actually bring it back with Layla. And same thing can be said with the Knights and Lena. If you use Braun to search out a Knight, discard the Knight for CP to play Lena, you'll be able to get back on the field. One of our Mesian, just in case you have such a horrible hand that it could count as a second mulligan. And there's a lot of 3-ofs in this deck, and some of them being unique characters. So if you get to a point where you drew too much into, let's say, sometimes Famed Migogo is not that useful, or you have too many Cloud of Darknesses in your hand, or maybe you have spare Yunas, copies of Yunas and Waka in your hand as well. Be able to put them at the bottom of your deck and try to draw into some cards that are more useful against the current board state is going to be good. And last but not least, Razzler. As we mentioned earlier, Razzler is there for Ash. You get 2-drop backup. It really helps you build out your board early on. As I mentioned, what you want to do is, even against aggressive decks, allow yourself to take a couple points of damage. Make sure you build out your backups. After that, build out your forwards, get to that Cagnasso turn, or in combination with Cloud of Darkness, set your opponent back and go for the win. So hopefully you like this deck. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and put them down in the comments down below. In terms of some of our giveaways, obviously, if you subscribe, you'll be entered into a giveaway. It's been a little while. We have to catch up on some of them. We haven't done the drawing for the 600 yet, but some of the things that are going to come up as some of the prizes that will be available. If you're a subscriber, as we're going to hit the next milestone at 700 subscribers, you'll be able to pick some of the cards that, well, they're still around. So the prizes that were not handed out are still going to be available. Well, there'll be one less prize if the future, well, after we get around to it, the winner of the 600 subscriber giveaway picks out one of them. There's some of the cards leftovers. There was Magic the Gathering, Horizon Canopy. Well, it's a little glary. Sorry about that. Horizon Canopy. Mox Amber was also available. Cactuar sleeves. Yay! So cute. And the Lightning plushie that somebody requested a while back, but nobody decided to choose as a prize. She's adorable though. And well, since we're getting close to 700, why don't we throw another prize? Anybody that didn't make it to Toronto, I know there were a lot of you that didn't. Yeah, here's a Shiva deck box, signed by Taru Kageyama, one of the producers of the game. So if you like what we do, if you want to support us, go ahead and whoops, too many things around here. Go ahead and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.